Boris Johnson has claimed a decisive mandate and urged the United Kingdom to unite after his Conservative Party secured its biggest majority in 30 years. Braving the cool weather in England is our own Laura Jays. As she joins us from London, Laura, the Prime Minister will now get Brexit done.
He certainly will, and that was his central promise. He wasn't gloating today. I thought his speech outside Number 10 was one, well, it took a conciliatory tone. He knows that this country has been through so much over the last 3 years since the Brexit referendum. Now he can finally say he will get Brexit done, and that will be completed at the end of January. There are free trade agreements to work out and a lot of detail to work out all of next year, but this is the turning point, and it is a decisive mandate. It is a stunning election victory for the Tories. Timmy, as you say, this is the biggest majority they've had in 30 years. And look, they won by 80 seats in the end. It wasn't close at all. And as the exit poll rolled in, that was pretty clear. The exit poll in this country is something that party leaders, any officials really look at quite seriously, because it is historically correct, and it was almost bang on. Boris Johnson had a central message, and that was about Brexit. So yes, it is a great day here if you're a Conservative voter. The other story of the night, of course, is the complete capitulation of Jeremy Corbyn's Labor Party. This was a repudiation of his mandate and the man himself. He was deeply unpopular. He was beset by problems of anti-Semitism within his own party that he just couldn't overcome. He will stand down, but he says somehow his mandate, his manifesto, he believes is still popular. But I guess that's for the next Labor leader to decide, which will happen over the next 6 months. Everywhere you look, there are stories. The Liberal Democrats have really failed to launch. They tried to get into this tactical voting thing so they could actually stop the Conservatives having a majority. That failed so badly that the Liberal Democrat leader even lost her seat. Rob Powell has a wrap here from London.
Striding out into a new era of government, a call for unity from an often divisive Prime Minister, now in full command of Parliament.
I urge everyone to find closure and to let the healing begin. What is this new government going to do? What is he going to do with his extraordinary majority? I will tell you that is what we are going to do. We are going to unite and level up.
Watched on by his staff, Boris Johnson said he would work night and day to repay the trust placed in him by those who had never voted Conservative before. A Prime Minister with the power to drive through Brexit and more after a night of political shockwaves. Across the country, it was a tale of Labour strongholds tumbling down, the once unshakable wall of red seats turning blue.
Do you think you'll resign? Thank you very much.
In North London, Jeremy Corbyn returned as an MP in Islington. Bittersweet victory on a devastating night for his party. He will go, but not immediately.
I will not lead the party in any future general election campaign. I will discuss with our party to ensure there is a process now of reflection on this result and on the policies that the party will take going forward. And I will lead the party during that period to ensure that discussion takes place and we move on into the future.
The die was cast early in the night as the exit poll signalled Labour's worst result since the 1930s.
Conservatives will have 368 seats.
John McDonnell heckled during his acceptance speech, and a fight breaking out as the Shadow Chancellor warned about the rise of the far right. For Labour, bitter recriminations are already underway. Many in the party are pointing the finger at their leader, but others blame Brexit.
This election was taken over ultimately by Brexit, and we as a party represent people who both voted Remain and Leave, and my whole strategy was to reach out beyond the Brexit divide to try and bring people together, because ultimately the country has to come together.
It's looking like a disastrous night, Joe. What went wrong?
It was a difficult night for the Lib Dems as well.
Are you going to resign?
Their leader unseated by the SNP in East Dunbartonshire, but no regrets from Jo Swinson as she bid farewell to frontline politics. But the SNP leader Nicola Sturgeon was revelling in Jo Swinson's downfall. upping her party's tally of seats to 48 and setting out today her next steps to secure another independence referendum.
This is not about asking Boris Johnson or any other Westminster politician for permission. It is instead an assertion of the democratic right of the people of Scotland to determine our own future.
Leaving Buckingham Palace today, a majority government secured. Boris Johnson will now not need other parties to prop him up in Parliament. A freedom to govern denied to his predecessors, the power to shape Brexit and Britain as he and his new supporters might wish.
And Laura, as you mentioned, a huge win. It was the biggest since Margaret Thatcher in 1987. Boris Johnson was accused of, avoiding interviews. He literally hid in a fridge. There was a lot that he was accused of lying as well. But people still voted for him. Do you think it was, his campaign, Get Brexit Done, literally 3 words? It was such a clear message.
Yeah, it was a really simple message, and for people that have lived through 3 years of utter real chaos on Brexit and not being able to get it done, it really resonated with them. Yes, he hid in a fridge, yes, he avoided some of the big interviews, but that was his campaign strategy. He went small target and simply it worked for him. Look, the 80-seat majority is certainly proof of that. I think Brexit absolutely was the vote driver, the main issue here, but it didn't actually turn out to be a record voting number. It was actually slightly down in 2017. So people were motivated, but really not much more motivated than they were in 2017. The big story as well, when you look at the numbers and you delve a little deeper as well, in the red wall, those Labor seats that fell to the Conservatives, we're talking about seats in the north of England, the Midlands, in Wales. People have voted Labor their whole lives. These seats have never been blue, and now they are blue for the next 5 years. And in large part, you can look at the Brexit party, Nigel Farage party, for the reason for that. So Labor people there couldn't quite bring themselves to vote for the Conservatives, but they held their nose and they voted for the Brexit party, and that allowed Boris Johnson to come through the middle in a lot of those seats. So there's different stories all over the place. You look at Scotland, they won 48 seats in the end, picking up seats from the Conservatives. They want to still run this Scottish independence argument, but what happens there? Does Nicola Sturgeon still push for that, even with Boris Johnson's thumping majority? I mean, he doesn't have to answer to anyone. There's nothing in his way at the moment. He's got a parliamentary party which is united behind him, and there's nothing like a victory to unite a party.
Absolutely. We saw it here in Australia, didn't we, Laura? But I suppose the million-dollar question is, there's been so many false dawns. The election has come and gone. He's had the win. Will Brexit get done?
Yes, I can guarantee you. Well, I can't guarantee you, but Boris Johnson guarantees it will be done. And look, as I mentioned before, he says he took quite a conciliatory tone outside number 10 Downing Street today. He wasn't gloating, and I think that was the right thing to do. You still got to remember that millions of people voted against him. They still voted for Jeremy Corbyn, even though the manifesto was so huge. So he has a job ahead of him, not only to get Brexit done, but to reunite the United Kingdom. So here's the timeline. 31st of January, the UK will be out of the EU. So that's just in a couple of weeks' time. He's already done the deal with Europe. There possibly might be a few tweaks around the edges, but then really the hard work begins. They've got to renegotiate a free trade deal with the European Union so business markets aren't completely thrown into chaos. That's going to take, as you know, free trade agreements can take 10 years to negotiate, but he promises he can get it done in a year. So Brexit, done and dusted. The official line, 31st of January, the end of 2020, there'll be a free trade deal, and then things might start getting back to some kind of normalcy.